We're ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to work on a McLane edger. I picked this up back in December, maybe January, and I do remember I drove through a snowstorm to get to it. Now, driving in a snowstorm in Texas is kind of unusual, but that was my day that day. So it sat around, and today I looked around and said, what have I got sitting in a corner that needs work? And I remembered this. So let's get to it. Now, I've already given this a bath because there's just no reason to work on dirty equipment when you don't have to. And when you got something this small, it's a lot easier to clean it up than it is to be covered in grease all day. So we pulled on this, and she didn't want to start. When I put some gas in the carburetor, she kicked a little bit, but she didn't want to start. She gave me just a little bit of a chug here and there. So I'm going to guess that the diaphragm's no good in the carburetor, and other than that, she's a good engine. So the first thing we're going to do is take the muffler off and get it out of our way, because this is one of those where you can do the diaphragm without removing the carburetor from the engine. On the McLane mufflers, there's a little tab on each side that you'll see once I get the muffler off. So if you loosen the bottom and then take the top bolt off, it comes off pretty easy. Pretty easy is an opinion, of course. Getting these bolts off is a pain in the, well, you know. I always feel like I should be telling bad jokes when I'm doing the tedious part of taking bolts out. But nowadays, you just don't know who you're going to offend. Okay, we'll go ahead and put that little nut right there and keep it together. See what I was talking about on the slots on the bottom and the top here? So all you do is take one off and it slips right off. Now from here we're going to need a magnet so we don't lose any of the nuts. And bolts and screws and bits. We'll take that off and get it out of our way. And getting to the diaphragm on one of these is just this easy. The two problems you'll find on these McLanes, and on this style carburetor in general, is either this diaphragm goes just out of old age, or the dip tube falls off or breaks out of old age. Every now and again you'll see one of these gaskets go bad, but as a rule, until you take the carburetor off, that gasket's usually fine. So we're going to try to get around that by not taking the carburetor off quite yet. And that came off pretty easy. I think it did. It's hung up on something here. What do we got? Oh, there we go. And there's our plate. And here's the gasket we're talking about, the diaphragm. And that looks pretty bad. When this starts life, it's completely flat. So you see this big indentation is from that spring sitting on it for a long time. And if you look here, I don't know if you can see it, but this is worn an impression here. And on the other side, this is worn an impression. So we're going to go ahead and put a new diaphragm in it, and we'll just throw some carb cleaner in the two holes here. I'm throwing parts around. Order a diaphragm. Spring looks good. It actually looks very good. So that might be savable. So let's get some carb cleaner, and I'm going to go ahead and go pick up a new diaphragm. I might even have one in the box here somewhere. Okay, now we've got our new diaphragm. If you compare the two, you can see there's quite a bit difference between them. This looked like this once upon a time. And the springs, if you look at the height difference, this is the new spring and this is the old spring. That's what happened over the years to these guys. Okay, let's get back to work and put this guy back together. Okay, now we're going to use all of our fingers and try to get this all back in place. Getting the spring to stay in its little hole while we put this on can be tricky sometimes. Okay, we're getting close. We're getting closer and closer and closer. And there we go. I'll put our first screw in. Once we get a couple of screws in, she'll line up nicely. Okay, that ought to hold her still mostly. Now at this point, I'm going to peek in behind it and see how the spring's sitting. It looks like it's sitting pretty close. So let's put another screw in. I'm going to put this one a little bit snug. To hold this whole shooting match together. There we go. Now the stressful part's done. Now we just throw the other two screws in. Throw the muffler back on, put her on the ground, see if she runs. But as we said before, there's only really 3 things that can fail on this carburetor. This little baffle, the drop tube from the tank, from the carburetor into the tank, which is plastic, and this diaphragm. And that's that for the diaphragm. Okay, I moved you over a little bit so you can see the muffler go on. Okay, now you can see the little slot here and a little slot up here a little bit better. So what we'll do is just slot this one into it. Yeah, she's rolling away on me. There you go, now she's slotted into it. We'll line up the gasket and get the top bolt started. There you go, now I can move you around where you can see it. So now we're going to take our handy 3/8 wrench. We'll tighten this as far as we can with our fingers, because there's just not much room to swing a wrench in here. And we'll take our 3/8 wrench and finish her off. That's just finger tight for now. Now when I look at it, this really is a good looking machine. And when I bought it, it was a snow day. And yard equipment tends to go pretty cheap on snow days. Okay, let's put her on the ground and see if she starts. Okay, we've got no idea what we're going to get out of this, but let's give it a try. Well, she almost took off there. Let's turn the choke back a little bit. seems to have 2 speeds, full blast and not at all. That's pretty interesting. It looks like we might be hanging up a little bit on our linkage because she either went wide open or not at all. So let's go down here and take a look at our linkage real quick. Now this guy's really promising. Took it a second to get gas up to the carburetor, but once it did, she cranked right up. And because I'm not used to the motor, I went back and forth between shut off and wide open. And there's probably some adjustments to be had considering everything. Okay, it looks like we might be able to make an adjustment right here. I'm going to guess at a 5/16. Good guess today. Looks like I could have guessed at a flathead also. So we'll carry this just a little bit tighter. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, let's start her up and see what happens. Okay, we've made the adjustments we need to do. Now we're going to go ahead and put it all back together and run her with the air filter on it. The air filter looks a little old, but it's pretty clean, so it's good to go. Now we'll start her back up and see how she sounds. Hey, the frame on this and the wheels on this and everything just look magnificent, especially for its age. So let's start her up. Okay, she sounds pretty close, but needs a little bit more adjustment. So we're going to adjust this with the engine running and try to find the sweet spot so she accelerates correctly. Okay, let's hear it with the blade engaged completely. She's running pretty good now, but she's got that little bit of a miss. So just for fun, just for giggles, I'm going to go ahead and switch it from a non-resistor to a resistor spark plug and see if that makes a difference in it. I've seen cases where motors miss just a little bit when they've got a non-resistor plug in it, and vice versa. But it's hard to say what one motor will want until you try it. Let's tighten this down just a little bit too while we're at it. I don't think it'll make any difference, but it doesn't hurt to be complete. Oh, she's pretty tight now. Let's get the old spark plug out of the way. Let's give her a run, see if that helps any. When I say old spark plug, that's a really old spark plug. And that did. She sounds a whole lot better now. So this guy's pretty much ready to go. Okay, that went well. So to get this thing running, what we did was we replaced the diaphragm in the carburetor and we replaced the spark plug. Now, as you saw, replacing the diaphragm in the carburetor is pretty easy. And the spring looked okay until we saw the new spring. And the new spring was twice the size of the old spring, so it almost fooled us. But lucky enough, the kits that you can get on Amazon or wherever you buy your parts are really cheap. I think I paid $12 for a 5-pack of those diaphragms. And since I see these McLanes about once a month, they'll come in handy. I appreciate you watching, and don't forget to subscribe.